Hi, I'm Rochelle, and you're watching or listening to BoxBox F1 Pod. Welcome to the very first episode of the 2025 F1 season. We're kicking off our preseason activity with some essential information to make sure you've got all the necessary details before the season starts this weekend. Starting off with part one, get ready with me for the 2025 F1 season. How many times in a row can I say 2025 F1 season? I'm splitting this into two parts. So this will be part one, and it's going to cover the who's who of the paddock. So team principals, drivers, reserve drivers, anyone else you need to know, and all the deets about each team. And then part two, we'll go into some of the recent off-season drama, news, rumors that have gone on, followed by a debrief of the latest Drive to Survive season, which will be a great way for us to recap the previous season before we start with the new one this weekend in Australia. So to honor all the tea that I am about to spill, I decided that I'm gonna be making scones today to go along with some tea. And let's get cracking. Okay, so today we're gonna be covering all the BNOTs, big names on track. I came up with that term myself, including drivers, team principals, owners. And we'll also be going through all the inner team and cross team drama that's like important for you to know before the season starts, in case you do not know. And whether you're a new fan or a seasoned F1 pro, it's a good refresher to have before we kick things off, especially because things have moved around so much before the start of the season. There's so many new people and people driving for different teams, so it's just a good refresher. But before I fully dive in, a little bit of a disclaimer. I talk a big game, and I will frequently toss out like an unnecessarily hot take. But unfortunately for me, I have like little to no follow through. So expect a lot of sass, but also expect a self-imposed retraction, because I will undoubtedly change my mind about every single person in this paddock. I will 100% hit you with, but actually I love them. So this is not a guess. This happened in real time. Over the last 2 years, when Oscar first joined F1, I was like, he's got the personality of burnt toast. And then approximately 2.5 seconds later, I was like, oh my God, he's my favorite. I love him forever. So fair warning, there will be sass, but I'll probably change my mind. Anyway, you've been warned. So with that, let's kick things off. By the way, I will be going in constructor order, so based on who won, followed by everyone else. Which means we are kicking things off with, shock to everyone, McLaren. All right, so starting off with McLaren Formula One team, also known as McLaren. Okay, so that sounds stupid with McLaren, but there are teams with like very, very long names that no one actually calls. So we're gonna kick things off with the official D1 of McLaren, Lando Norris. God, he's 25, he's English, and I really loved Lando when he first came on the scene. He was fun, he was cute, he just like was just kind of like a sweet little kid who like ate nothing with flavor, and now he's an adult who eats nothing with flavor. He's just like, I'm a little torn on him because I do really want to love him. He's a lot of fun, he's a gamer, he's super Gen Z, but he's kind of like gotten kind of douchey over the last couple of years. He comes off a little spoiled and immature and sometimes kind of rude. And that's not to say he's not a good person and he's not nice and fun to certain people. I just think sometimes he needs to be a little careful about the things he says in the media. Also, weirdly, there was not that many last year because I think he was a little preoccupied trying to win a world championship, but like his thing has been hobbies. That does not feel like enough butter. When he was teammates with Carlos, he like became obsessed with golf and just started golfing all the time. That became his whole personality. And then he decided to take up DJing and would literally travel within his private jet with a DJ set and an actual DJ, Martin Garrix, is like best friends with all the drivers, by the way. Important information to keep in mind. And then he like took up, when Daniel arrived, he like took up photography and became like lando.jpg. Literally that's the name of his Instagram account. Sometimes I still refer to him as that, but all those hobbies have kind of died out. That's what happens when you're fighting for a world championship. You just don't have time for hobbies. Unless you're Max Verstappen, in which case you have a hobby. And that's gaming. But we'll get to him. He also games, by the way. Lando's like streaming all the time. So anyway, I do really like Lando. I just think he needs a little bit of an attitude adjustment. Also, his best friend on the grid is probably, I think it's probably, it's Carlos. I don't know why I thought of that for so long. Carlando. But he's really good friends with Max, which is not something DTS or Lando would have you believe at times. But yes, he's good friends with Max. Okay, next up, Oscar Piastri. Oscar is 23 and he is Australian. So this is a big weekend for him coming up. Like I said, it took me like quite a bit of time to like realize how great Oscar is, just because he's so quiet, and I just like presumed that meant he had no personality, but actually he's just quiet. And he's also like, when he does talk, he's really, really funny. He is also very fast. He's like very good at his job. And also combined with his like cool as a cute personality, like it kind of is like the perfect recipe for an F1 driver, because he doesn't like balk under pressure, and he's fast and he's good and he's like mature. He's like rather mature for being 23 years old, especially compared to some other people on that team. And if you truly want to see Oscar's personality shine, you gotta follow him on Twitter. X. But also his Instagram captions are usually 10 out of 10. He's very funny, and also it runs in the family because his mother is hilarious on Twitter. In fact, and I will talk about this again, but they went to Pilates class just these past few days, and that's funny because every time Oscar is doing well in a race, she will tweet, "Oh man, I have to miss my 5 a.m. Pilates class again." You have to be there. It is funny. Anyway, so that's Oscar. Also, speaking of Oscar, the whole cool as a cute personality thing, like that really translates on the track. Like he doesn't just not talk out loud that often. He also like is almost never, I think he said like 4 words on the radio all of last year. And he had to like be prompted. I think one time he was like, "Well, that was a little annoying." And that was like the most negative thing he said on the radio. Okay. Anyway. Follow him on Twitter. Also, he's definitely a silent assassin because no one's ever going to see him coming in suddenly. He's going to have a world championship. Like, mark my words. All right, next up, team principal. Well, he's not team principal, sorry. He's owner and CEO, Zach Brown. My notes just say, ugh. So I used to love Zach Brown. But then he like, I don't know, got kind of douchey, and like the way he handled the Daniel Ricciardo situation by like unceremoniously kicking him out mid-season, like that really broke my heart. And he just also didn't really take care of him when he was there. And actually, I think I will blame McLaren for Daniel's departure from F1. But anyway, I sort of fallen out with him since I used to call him like the Santa Claus of F1. Like I was really into Zach, and now he's just like this overgrown frat boy, or like Peter Pan, because he like collects all these cute young little boys. I unfortunately do have to give Zach some credit. He's very good at marketing and brand deals and all of that external strategy. Like McLaren has deals everywhere. They're in Abercrombie, they have designer deals, they have like, it's just like crazy. They're everywhere I look, there they are. They also have the coolest like brands on the car, like the Google One Circle that they have on the wheels. That's sick. And so unfortunately, as much as it pains me to do so, I do have to give Zach credit for that. He's a marketing brand genius, and as it turns out, pretty good at leading a Formula One team, unfortunately. So there's that. But moving on to the actual team principal, his name is Andrea Stella, and he's Italian. Oh yeah, Zach Brown's American. In case it wasn't obvious by the entire personality I just described, he's American. He actually won Jeopardy, he won Wheel of Fortune, and used the money to buy his first go-kart, so we can blame Wheel of Fortune for him. The actual team principal is named Andrea Stella. He's Italian. He was a performance engineer and race engineer at Ferrari before this. That's pretty much all I know about him, other than apparently he likes red and orange. And he's kind of awkward. So Zach ends up taking a lot of the duties that usually go to the team principal. So that's why you'll see him quite often fighting with Christian and Toto and stuff, because Andrea's not there. And I think it was probably for the best, because every time I've heard him make a public statement, it was always probably a bad statement to be making. Overall, the information you need to know about McLaren is it's actually a pretty iconic team. It was started by a guy named Bruce McLaren from New Zealand, actually. Their headquarters are stunning. You've actually most definitely probably seen it in a movie somewhere. Most notably, at least the one that I noticed for sure, was the offshoot of Fast and Furious with Kevin Hart was just a cameo, with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and the British guy, who's great, whose name I also can't remember, the bald guy. The one who Yuki's obsessed with. Oh my God, this is useless information to anyone, sorry. Whoa. Anyway, moving on from whatever that was. Another thing you need to know about McLaren is that they love saying papaya rules all the time, yet no one ever seems to be able to define papaya rules. So that's a continued mystery that we've been trying to solve since Zach Brown arrived, because I'm pretty sure he invented papaya rules. Maybe he didn't, but Bruce certainly did not. They're expected to win this year, or at least put up quite a fight, and if they don't win, it'll be pretty disappointing for everyone and kind of awkward. So that's where they won the constructors last year. Lando came kind of close to challenging Max. So it's expected to be even more even this year, and they've had time. Like, they really struggled with strategy last year. It's like they got a great race car, but the rest of them weren't prepared for what that meant, so they didn't know what to do with it. So they made terrible strategy calls. Lando was not ready to suddenly fight for a championship. Literally in DTS, he's like, I wasn't fighting for a championship, and now suddenly I am? No one informed me. So there's that. I think now they've had time to prepare. The car won't change that much, so it should be interesting. All right, moving on to Scuderia Ferrari HP, also known as Ferrari. The HP part we can opt out of, but that is a title sponsor, so just so you know. And we're gonna kick things off with the king of Ferrari, Charles Leclerc. Now, the best way I can describe Charles Leclerc is a Disney princess. He has, if you watch DTS, and I'm just going to presume most people have watched DTS or know of Charles. They do a much better job of telling him his tragic story, but he grew up in Monaco. His brother races, he races. His father got sick, and he was the one who was taking them to all the racing and et cetera, et cetera. And his dying wish was for his son to race for Ferrari. Charles lied on his deathbed and said that he got signed to Ferrari. And his mother was furious with him, and everyone was furious with him. And then he got signed to Ferrari 2 weeks after his father passed away. He didn't lie to his father. They could afford for Arthur to go back into F2 or F3. And it's very sad. Also, Charles lost his godfather, Jules Bianchi, at 27 in the Japanese Grand Prix. So his life is littered with tragedy. He is objectively, this isn't up for debate. There's no question about it. He's stunning. He's objectively beautiful. Hang him in the Louvre. No one can argue with that. He's perfectly symmetrical. He's just, and worst of all, he's so nice. He's one of the kindest people ever. Anyway, he also comes off kind of ditzy, I want to say. Sometimes it seems like his head is in the clouds, but he's super smart. He speaks 4 languages. He's clearly an excellent driver. He's also really gifted at the piano, so he plays the piano a lot. In fact, he had several Spotify hits, and this was back in 2023, and his songs were higher up on the charts than he was in the world championship race. So that was a little sad for a bit, but we're back now. We're doing good. His full name is Charles Marc Hervé Percival Leclerc. Also, another thing about him, he was like so sad when Carlos was leaving the team. It was really sweet. He was tearing up all the time. He kept saying how he wanted to win the constructors because he wanted for Carlos's last like season with them to matter. It was just all so wholesome. Like, there is no one like Charles Leclerc. So I love him. He's an incredible driver. He's very fast. He does have terrible luck. In fact, there is something that has become known as the Monaco curse. I personally refer to it as the curse of the Monegasque prince because it just sounds nicer. But basically, up until 2024, he hadn't won in Monaco a single time. In fact, he rarely even finished in Monaco. He hates it being called a curse, and clearly it's broken now. I had a very distinct theory that there was a Monegasque witch that someone had like pissed off, and she just like had cursed him, and so like he just could never win Monaco. He had terrible luck in other places. Like, I kept trying to find a pattern because I'm like, there's a witch, there must be, because like, what has this man done to deserve this? Anyway, it kind of seems like the curse is broken because not only did he win Monaco, he also won Monza. But even so, when things don't go well for him, it's like tragic. Like, it's never just like, oh, it didn't work out, or oh, he made a mistake. It's usually just terrible. So anyway, I love Charles. He's our tragic hero of F1. And yeah. Moving on, Charles's teammate. Now I put Charles first because he'd been at Ferrari longer. So I felt, and Ferrari adores him. Ferrari, Italy, he's like literally, he's a Monegasque prince and he's the Ferrari prince. He is revered there. Okay, moving on to Lewis Hamilton. If you do not know, he is a vegan. He is a dog dad to a cute little dog named Roscoe. He embodies the hashtags #humble, #peace and love. I don't know if his vibe is going to change now that he's left Mercedes after like a decade there, pretty much. I don't know how much of that was him, how much of that was the Mercedes brand, if he's sort of like in a fuck it era. But what I do know is so far it's already actually been different. He seems more fun. I think he's even done some marketing with Charles, which he never did at Mercedes. And here he might be more willing to do stuff, because that's another thing that I'm gonna miss about the Carlos and Charles partnership, is that they were both like very willing to do whatever marketing asked them to do. They did all the videos. They looked like they were having fun together, and he doesn't really do that. Not for F1, not for Mercedes. Like the Secret Santa thing that we have every year, he never participates. That's like probably my only qualm with him, is it sometimes feels like he thinks he's either because he is more famous than the rest of them, he feels like he's above all of that, or because he just kind of feels like untouchable. And like one of my favorite things about the drivers is how relatable they are. But maybe Charles will bring it out in him, who knows? He is a GOAT. He's a 7-time world champion. Some people will argue 8. It is 7. He has said that he is more concerned about getting a constructor championship with Ferrari than his own 8th world drivers championship. I don't know if I believe him, but he said it. But anyway, I'm excited for this new era of Lewis. I think it'll be fun and different and just exciting. So moving on to Zhou Guanyu. He drove for Alfa Romeo last year. Or it was Kick Sauber now, actually. Sorry, but he started as a Alfa Romeo driver before they became Sauber and eventually Audi. He was the first Chinese driver. Guess he's still the first Chinese driver. But like there was just no space for him after Audi's going in a different direction, and it's kind of sad. But I would argue that he is more of a fashion icon than Lewis. He just has something, and it's exciting to watch. So I'm so glad he's still going to be in the paddock. Him, Charles, and Lewis will definitely be the best dressed trio on the grid, I think. well, bless Charles. He really loves fashion. He does struggle a little bit. He has some interesting pant choices, but that's Zhou Guanyu. And then Fred Vasseur is the team principal. He is notably not Italian. I'm aware that no one I've just talked about is Italian, but like most of their personnel is Italian, so that's pretty big. He's French, and he might be one of my favorite people of all time. He acts like really like burly and like aggressive, but like he's so funny. He loves a prank. My favorite thing is he always pretends like he does not speak English with like DTS and the media and stuff. He'll just like switch to French. I did just say that he's like funny and a jokester and everything, but like he had me fooled because like there he went being all funny and cute and then stabbed his best friend in the back, Toto Wolff, and stole his like prime driver from him. I love it. We love Fred. He's funny. He's clearly a great team principal because where Ferrari was when he got there and where they are now, incredible. He will bring them to a constructors championship, and I wouldn't be surprised if also a world championship. So we love Fred a lot. Moving on. So Team T. So historically, Ferrari strategists have sucked. They've gotten a lot better in recent years. Like their biggest problem is communication. Like they will sometimes tell the driver like pit right now, and then they'll be like at the entry to the pit lane and be like, never mind. And they'll be like, huh? And then they'll keep going straight. They're like, no, pit right now. And it's so confusing. They just give a lot of misinformation. And then like, for example, if Charles or Carlos would ask something on the radio, their response would be like, checking. And then it'd be silent. And anyway, it was really bizarre. Part of that was fixed when they got Charles a new race engineer, because I think a big issue was his person specifically. So that got fixed, but like we still saw some remnants of that last year, but it is on the mend. It will also be interesting to see how the relationship between Charles and Lewis develops as Lewis settles in. Like it also will be not just between them, but also how Ferrari treats them both, because up until now, they're not gonna. Okay, let's try again. Lewis is used to, when he's in a car that works, getting the right of way, basically. And Charles is not a D2, especially at Ferrari. So, like, if the situation arises where they have to choose one over the other, I would really love to see how they handle that, because, like, I just don't know how they would handle it. Because, like, as Will Buxton said in the season of DTS, like, it's almost impossible to have a successful team when you don't have a distinct lead driver. But like, who do you choose? Do you choose Charles? Do you choose Lewis? Like, who is the D2? So anyway, that's going to be interesting. I'm also like nervous because Lewis is vegan and this is Italy. Carlos was a great fit because he really loved the food. He spoke Italian. He knew the anthem. He was like ready to go. And Lewis does not know the anthem. Allegedly requested vegan carbonara. So we'll see how that goes. It's a little concerning, but it'll be fine. All right, moving on. Oracle Red Bull Racing, also known as Red Bull Racing. So we're gonna kick things off with the driver of all drivers, Max Verstappen. He is 27, he is Dutch, he is currently the reigning world champ. He is now a 4-time world champ. He has a reputation that he does not really deserve. Well, okay. I think he deserves it on track, and certainly did at a certain point, but he has since matured. When he first got here, he was quite hot-headed, he was aggressive on track, he was angry all the time. Since then, he's calmed down, he's matured, he's really honed his craft, and I can't really say that you could still say all that stuff about him. However, people do, and people also extrapolate it to his real life, where he's actually a very nice person. And if he comes off as an ass, it's because either you've deserved it or he's just Dutch. I adore Max. I'm a Max apologist. If you've come here to hear someone shitting on Max, I probably rarely I said I shit on a lot of people. I rarely shit on Max. He's about to have a child with his girlfriend, Kelly Piquet, who famously has already a child with another F1 driver. His name was Daniel Kvyat, and he, in fact, used to have Max's seat at Red Bull. Max took it, and then his girlfriend. Kelly Piquet is also famous because her father is an F1 world champion, and her brother is a champion, or an F1 driver. I can't remember if he was a champion. He might have been the one with the issues. Anyway, loves an F1 driver, that girl. So I'm very excited. He's been a really cute bonus dad to her current child. And so I think he'll actually make a really good dad. He loves to trauma dump. Max is a big trauma dumper. His father... Okay, here's a story about his father. One time Max got second in a karting championship, and so Jos Verstappen left him in the rain at a gas station because he got second and not first. One time he stabbed a mechanic with a fork in the leg. And Max loves to like drop these little stories into casual conversation, loves a trauma dump. He's very funny, and he also, I feel like he doesn't feel like people think he's funny, because whenever he says something really funny and people laugh, he like looks around like this, like, oh my God, you laughed? He's a huge gamer. He got in a lot of trouble several times. He didn't get in a lot of trouble. He participated in a few like 24-hour e-racing championships the night before a race. A couple of times he won the race the next day. One time he got second, and Dr. Helmut Marko, who we'll meet in a second, was like, you're out of here. And Max was like, no. So they tried to ban him from racing before a race, but he said, no, thank you. He is the leader of the Orange Army. The Dutch people love him. The Dutch race, in fact, I think only happens because of Max Verstappen, and it's just a sea of fucking orange. So anyway... there's so much, Max-splaining. So Max has a thing, it's really funny to watch him after a race. He's always telling people stuff. We call him Max-splaining. I don't think it's like mansplaining. He's just explaining. Like, he just like loves to explain things. Like, he will like debrief his entire race immediately. And it's funny, when they're in the cool down room, it's been dubbed the Max podcast, because he just sits down and immediately they're doing replays on the TV, and he's like immediately debriefing the whole thing, and it's always super funny. And he was asked about it one time, and he's like, I don't know where that came from. I hate podcasts. All right, next driver, Liam Lawson. He has replaced Checo Perez as the D2 at Red Bull. Checo lasted quite a bit of time compared to the people before him, so kudos to him, but alas, being Max's teammate is no easy feat. I refer to the D2 seat at Red Bull as equivalent to the Defense Against the Dark Arts post at Hogwarts. It's cursed. Being Max's teammate is rough. No one's succeeded as of yet. Checo came close, but he, alas, flew a little too close to the sun, and here we are. So Liam Lawson actually was a backup driver. He came in to replace Daniel last year at AlphaTauri/RB, when Daniel broke his hand, and he did really well, and he thought he was going to get a seat. He did not. Daniel got the seat at RB, and so he was pretty pissed off, but he like stayed the course. He stayed their reserve driver for Red Bull and RB, just like biding time. Daniel was underperforming. Liam took his place in the middle of last year as the official RB driver, and then it was basically the whole time was between him, Yuki, Daniel, and Checo for those two seats. Daniel was out at that point. Then it became between Checo, Yuki, and Liam. Checo was also out. Like, he wasn't like officially in the running. So it was between Liam and Yuki, and I was kind of sad because like people kept forgetting about Yuki. Like, he definitely deserved to be considered for the Red Bull seat. He, in theory, got tested, didn't pass whatever they were looking for. So he is not racing for Red Bull, but Liam is. And Will Buxton put it very succinctly. He was basically like, Liam Lawson is a backup driver who came in and unseated two veteran, well-respected drivers in one go. There was he did have like sort of issues with Checo last year. They kept like sparring on track and he flipped him off a couple of times. And you think they get him in trouble, but no, I'm pretty sure that's what got him his seat, because Christian was like, oh, he reminds me of Max. He's feisty. So that's Liam Lawson. He's from New Zealand. I don't know if I mentioned that. And he loves cars. Lightning McQueen is his all-time hero. He's kind of douchey, but in a fun way. So I'm not like totally mad at it yet. And they're F1 drivers. Of course, they're kind of douchey, but like I like him at the moment. All right, moving on to the team principal / owner, part owner, CEO, whatever, Christian Horner, aka Mr. Ginger Spice, because if you do not know, he is married to Jerry from the Spice Girls, aka Ginger Spice. So he is Mr. Ginger Spice. He has a very adorable ginger family at home where they live like on a farm, and they're always like looking all British in a field with their horses and like shooting stuff. And not the horses, obviously, clay pigeons. And then I would be remiss not to mention that last year he was accused of like allegedly harassing and mistreating an employee. It was dismissed several times. However, I have heard rumors that she's still fighting. So supposedly it hasn't really gone away, but he has remained at the helm of Red Bull. Christian is very petty and he's very sassy. I think all the principals are little twerps, but he's just more open about it. I like to describe him as having like a Real Housewives mentality. He understands the assignment. He will spar, he will sass, but he also is pretty good at being a team principal, clearly. So Dr. Helmut Marko is like an advisor type thing for Red Bull Racing. He's been there forever. He's like 85 years old. He has a glass eye because he lost it during a racing incident when he was very young. He is basically a villain. Looks like a villain, talks like a villain, sounds like a villain. He's a villain. And he's just always lurking, and he's always talking to the media. He's always chatting shit to the media. It's like actually hilarious. Like, I don't know why no one's stopping him. All right. And the team T, their main enemy is Mercedes. Christian Horner's specifically, his main enemy is Toto Wolff. And I actually think their animosity with each other is what spurs the teams not liking each other. They pretty much have the same reputation as the drink. They've got wings, they go fast, and they're very aggressive. Historically, they won for 4 years in a row from 2010 to 2013 with Seb. Then they had a bit of a lull. And then they started winning again with Max in 2021. And they absolutely dominated 23, like lost one race. And then 2024 was less of a landslide. They did not get the Constructors' Championship, but they did get the Drivers' Championship. And, you know, the cars are a bit more even this year, so I don't think they'll have another landslide. And in 2026, when the cars change, because all the regulations are changing, they won't have Adrian Newey, which was the key to their success and their amazing car. So only time will tell if they're going to be able to replicate that success without him there spearheading it. And that is it on Red Bull. Moving on to Mercedes AMG Petronas Formula One team, also known as Mercedes. Kicking things off with the officially dubbed D1, George Russell. My only note here is probably not a robot. There is like an inside joke that goes around that he is a robot. So he started at Williams, then moved on to Mercedes a couple of years ago. And he famously got the job at Williams because at 16 years old, he created a PowerPoint that he presented to Toto Wolff as to why he should be a Mercedes driver. And since 2016, he's been hauling fucking ass to lead this team and be #1 driver. And here he is. He kisses a lot of ass. He's 6'2", he's British, he's like 27, 28, best friends with Alex Albon on the grid. He's a nice guy. I do like him. He's also the director of the GPDA, the Grand Prix Drivers Association. He's one of the directors. I think he's the lead director. I don't know. He talks the most out of all of them. He's got a great girlfriend. Her name is, oh my God, Carmen. I love her. She's Spanish. He He started beef with Max Verstappen last year because he thought Max misbehaved on track and he was a bad role model. I actually can't remember what started the beef. Wow. But like he kept calling him like a bad role model, and Max like let the whole thing go quite quickly, and George just kept going. In fact, he's still going. So he's like one of those. He's just like very keen, eager beaver. And he's basically like head boy. That's how I'm imagining. He's basically like the prefect or head boy. He's Percy Weasley. He's fucking Percy Weasley. That's what he is. But I do like George most of the time. He just can be a bit annoying. Moving on to their new driver, little Kimi Antonelli. His full name is Andrea Kimi Antonelli. He's freshly 18. He's Italian. I know very little about him other than he's just a literal baby. He looks so small and cute, and I think he might be Toto's favorite, much to George's chagrin. That sounds really weird out loud. I literally, in my head, I say Chargin, which obviously is wrong. But I don't know if he has his license yet, but he did not when he was signed to Mercedes. He was still in school. There was a clip in DTS where Toto was like, so how's school? And he was like, it's good. They also showed his bedroom in DTS, and he had a teddy bear in the corner, and they're like, does it have a name? He's like, yes, it's called Toto Bear. It's very cute. It'll be cute to see seeing if George can like step up to being a mentor and see how he thrives. He just seems way too small to be in any sort of car. He's just so young, but cutie nonetheless. Toto Wolff, the CEO and team principal of Mercedes. He is 6'5", he is Austrian, he's an intellectual. He frequently debates things like nature versus nurture. I don't know how to describe him. He's like a man. He's a man. I used to love him more when they were winning. You really learn who someone is when they start losing. He definitely became more annoying. After 2021, I don't think he could handle what was going on with them. He became a little bitter. He became way more petty. Like, it's like he couldn't really come to terms with his new reality. And even now, like with Lewis leaving, like he was really hurt, and understandably he was hurt. Who wouldn't be hurt if like the longest standing relationship in F1 between principal and driver was he just like left with no warning. Of course, Toto did give him a shitty contract that like specified how he would retire and not be a Mercedes spokesperson or whatever. It was like a really weird, there was a reason Lewis left, obviously, other than the car being shit. And on these kinds of terms, you know? He's been a little desperate. DTS really showed his desperation in full swing. Anyway, I often find myself thinking, do better, Toto Wolff. He does have a fabulous wife named Susie Wolff, who is the director of the F1 Academy, which is the female pipeline into F1. Very cool. She's Scottish. She was also a driver. She's a badass. Love her. Toto does have some anger management issues. He will frequently be found swearing or throwing things across the room. The reserve driver is Valtteri Bottas. Previously, it was Mick Schumacher, but he has since left. Valtteri was famously the D2 at Mercedes for a long, long time, and he was the key to many of Lewis's victories, for sure. He was definitely stifled, both on track and off. He left for Alfa Romeo, which then became Kick Sauber and will soon become Audi. There, we really saw him shine. He always seemed like sad at Mercedes, but he really was thriving. He like grew a mullet. He bleached the mullet. He did commercials. He raced competitively in cycling because his girlfriend's a cyclist. Her name's Tiffany Cromwell. She's an Olympic cyclist. He became kind of famous because he liked saunas and was always naked in the sauna. So then he released a calendar of him naked in various bodies of water where you could just see the butt, and was selling it to raise money for mental health, I think. Which is fabulous. I love Valtteri. He's just so quirky and unusual and great. But Toto did say that now that he's back under the Mercedes brand, no more butt calendars. So back to being stifled. Team T. So the enemy is obviously Red Bull, now also Ferrari. They were the dominant force in F1 for the better part of the decade. They won the Drivers' Championship 7 times with Lewis Hamilton. They won the Constructors' Championship 8 times. And they finally broke their Constructors' streak in 2022. And obviously the Drivers in 2021 with the whole Lewis and Max situation. As I said, the vibe there has definitely changed. They, I don't think, handled the loss very well, and also the loss of momentum. I think they got a bit complacent in winning and didn't know how to deal with not winning anymore. Hopefully things are on the up and up, because it's not nice to see people that glum and like just failing at life. But they also have this like weird PR vibe. Everything feels PR-y, kind of holier than thou, the way they talk about things. I think I mentioned that I don't want Lewis to continue to be like that when he's at Ferrari, and I'm hoping that was a Mercedes vibe that he was exuding. But like, that's like one thing I don't really like about them, is they're very PR-y, and everything they say sounds fake or false. Moving on to Aston Martin Aramco Formula One team, also known as Aston Martin. So Fernando Alonso, I'm assuming is a D1 because he's Fernando Alonso, 2-time world champion. He is Spanish. He's 43. Does not act like it. He has the energy of a rookie. In fact, I think he might have more energy than Kimi Antonelli. It's a little appalling. I don't know what he's doing, but I would like that sort of agility. He is so funny. He's kind of a villainy type energy, but he does it all with a smirk, which I love. In fact, one of my favorite quotes from him is, "We are very selfish, drivers in general. But in Formula One, there has to be always good characters and bad ones, heroes and anti-heroes. So me, I'm on the dark side." And then he just walked off camera. Iconic. He's so iconic. He obviously hasn't won in a while, but he's still able to be mid-level, like stay mid the whole time, which is very impressive at his age and with the car that he has. Now that they, in theory, I think he's planning to retire in the next year or two, but maybe, hopefully he gets a chance to drive an Adrian Newey car and really show us what he can do, because he definitely still has the speed and the energy and the desire to keep going. Okay. Lance Stroll, he's Canadian, and he is, in case you do not know, the son of the owner of Aston Martin. Lance's goal in all of this F1 stuff really confuses me. I honestly think he's there because his dad loves F1, rather than his dad being in F1 for him, if that makes sense. But he's not doing it because he's forced to, because they seem to have like a very loving relationship. It's almost like out of love for his father, he is doing this, but he's not really into it. There was like a rumor at one point he's gonna quit and have a tennis career. The only time I've seen like real spark in him was when 2 years ago he fell off his bike in Spain and shattered both wrists and broke his toe and had to get emergency surgery, and then raced a week later and finished like 8th. And that was insane to me. I thought that was like a new Lance Stroll. He was reawakened, like all this stuff. That didn't happen. He went back to his same like here because I have to be sort of attitude. But he's a very nice guy. He kind of gives the energy of someone who was homeschooled and doesn't know how to socialize particularly well, but I also just think it's just because he doesn't want to be there. But he's always very nice and polite and everything with everyone. It's less of he gets a lot of shit from people, like, why is he here? He's the worst driver on the grid, but he's not even a driver, blah, blah, blah. And I think that's totally unfair. I think he's a perfectly adequate driver. I just don't think he wants to do it, and I just can't figure out why he's there. So I really like Lance. I just feel like he needs to pursue a different endeavor. So Lawrence Stroll, the CEO of Aston Martin, he's a mover and a shaker, as I like to call him. He's honestly a badass. Whenever he's on Drive to Survive, he's always shown in slow motion because like he's just a badass, and like badasses are shown in slow motion, but he executes at like 3 times speed in real life. He seems like a wonder. There's been some clips of him with like children fans, and he's just so loving and kind. He seems like a wonderful father to both of his children. Chloe Stroll, bless up. He genuinely seems to just like, he's a billionaire and like aggressive in the business room, so they think he's an asshole. I don't think he's actually an asshole. I think he's just a businessman, and clearly a pretty good one. So I'm a Lawrence Stroll apologist. Sorry, I feel like I'm disappointing everyone because I like all the wrong people, but I do like Lawrence. I'm sorry. For Team T, like the biggest thing that Lawrence moved and shaked his way all the way to Red Bull and stole their head engineer. So Adrian Newey is officially now at Aston Martin, probably starting to work on the 2026 car. We'll see what magic he can do, but like Lawrence knows what he needs to win, and he's gonna do whatever he can to get it. I have full faith in his 5-year plan, although I think it might have been extended at this point. I think 5-year plan, we're only like year 4, but I have full faith in him and anything he plans to do. Aston Martin will be a top team. I just know it. All right, moving on to BWT Alpine Formula One team, also known as Alpine. So D1, Pierre Gasly, he's French and he's pretty cool, and also he knows it. His girlfriend's name is Kika, she's Portuguese. His best friend is Charles. They've been friends since they were little. He used to be friends with Esteban Ocon when they were in their karting days, but then they hated each other because they were competing with each other, and it's like a whole drama. He's chronically online, like chronically. It became like a whole like joke that liked by Pierre Gasly, because no matter what you saw online, it was liked by Pierre Gasly. Like he saw everything. He's also really good friends with Yuki and was really sad when he left because Yuki like looked like his heart was broken, but they still hang out all the time. They do karaoke together. Him and Charles speak French together super fast. Apparently he's chronically late, which is what I've learned this time on DTS. And anyway, I really love Pierre. It's been rough because Alpine has not had a good year so far, but hopefully things are turning around, and we'll get to see more of little Pierre. The newest addition to Alpine is Jack Doohan. He's Australian. He's been a reserve driver for Alpine for ages. I believe he has what they call Riz, but I couldn't know for sure yet, but I think he has Riz. What we saw of him in DTS, he looked like he was about to pee his pants when he was talking to Flavio Briatore, which I don't blame him. I almost peed my pants and he wasn't even threatening me. And also there has been rumors before he's even had a chance to sit in a car that he'll be replaced by Franco Colapinto, which is just shit. Like, let him enjoy his first season in Formula One without the threat of like being replaced. Like, who's going to perform well with that hanging over their head? But he was a reserve driver for Alpine for ages, so he really waited his turn. I'm really excited to see what he can do behind the wheel. And I think it's just gonna be a really fun addition to the paddock. We've got a lot of Australians and New Zealanders popping about. Moving on to the reserve driver at Alpine, Franco Colapinto. Love him. He rocked up last year as the replacement for Logan Sargent at Williams. He is 19, I think, from Argentina. He's basically South America's hero. He's so sweet. He's funny. He's charming. He is the king of flirting. He flirts with everyone. He flirt with a rock. I was really sad he was not able to get a seat in F1 for this year, but again, that doesn't mean I want him replacing Jack before Jack's had a chance to prove himself. The team principal is Oliver Oakes. It was Otmar who was fired and most likely a scapegoat. And Otmar had been replaced by a guy named Bruno, who was just like this rando engineer who was supposed to get sub in for a bit. Horrible. He said he didn't want to be team principal, and I don't think anyone wanted him to be team principal because like he clearly hated people. I don't think he was much of a people person. So now we have Oliver Oakes, who's a very pleasant British man. He seems to be leading the team in the right direction. But again, is it Oliver Oakes or is it Flavio Briatore, who is basically like a consultant? He's an executive advisor, which I think is basically Alpine's answer to Dr. Helmut Marko. Both could he was like a huge name in F1 back in the day. He created a lot of drivers, won a lot of championships, but he also notorious for creating a giant scandal called Crashgate, where he was accused by one of his drivers of being forced to crash so that the other driver could win. Very dramatic. We can get into it. That's like a whole episode situation. But he was banned indefinitely from all motorsport. But now he's, I guess, indefinitely has been lifted because he's back. Just like terrifying Italian man, truly, well and truly. Also, apparently, according to DTS, he dated Naomi Campbell and Heidi Klum. I don't know how he managed that at any point. Money, I guess, but like crazy. So Team T, Ryan Reynolds, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce are all investors in Alpine for God knows what reason. Ryan Reynolds has a pretty good track record of turning teams around. Hasn't done it here yet. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce have a pretty good reputation of winning. That hasn't leaked into this yet, but you never know. Really, the only word you need to describe Alpine, though, like in the end, is French. They're just French. They're super duper French. They're a little less French now that Esteban Ocon is no longer one of the drivers, but they're still pretty fucking French. There's enough French to go around. We like don't need Oliver Oakes and Jack Doohan to be French to make this team less French. There's enough of it for everyone. Moving on, Visa Cash App Racing Bulls Formula One team. Also known as Racing Bulls, also known as RB, previously known as AlphaTauri. I will probably be referring to it by any number of combinations of that name, of those names. First up, Yuki Tsunoda, my favorite of all time, my little baby. He loves food a lot. Newly into working out, he used to hate it. Now he's begrudgingly accepted it, which I love. He went up from an extra small to a small, so that's pretty big. My favorite way to describe Yuki, right, is all the Formula One drivers were asked what their dream in life is, and every one of them said to be a world champion. And Yuki said to open a restaurant, and that pretty much sums him up. I would love, my goal in life is to have one chance to cook with Yuki for a Grand Prix. It would be amazing and super fun. I'm desperate to know his opinions on all foods, always watching out for his food content. Just love Yuki. He's so sweet. He's so nice. He's very angry in the car. Lots of swearing. Theory is that he learned English via video games, and so he speaks like he's in a video game. It's definitely gotten better, but it's like night and day. Like he's like a wild animal in the car, and then he gets out and he's like cute little tiny Yuki, and it's just so cute, and it's very confusing, but he's getting better at not swearing at his engineers. The second driver is new. His name is Issa Qajar. He is 20 and French Algerian. Oh yeah, Yuki Tsunoda is Japanese. I don't know if I mentioned that or if I needed to, but he's Japanese. So Issa Qajar is 20, French Algerian. I have literally no information about him other than he was willing to do the TikTok trends that the social media manager made them do. So that's a +1 in my book, but I guess we'll learn who he is as time goes on, and I'm sure he's lovely. The team principal is Laurent Mecky. He came from Ferrari, but he is French. He was with Ferrari from 2018 as their sporting director and then became deputy team principal, which apparently is a role. He was let go from Ferrari early last July, and then he came here where he dumped Daniel on the side of the road. So I'm not a big fan of Laurent Mecky's. And also he replaced Franz Tost, who was beloved by everyone. I think Yuki might have cried when Franz Tost left. I think he retired. So that was really sad, and Laura Mecky's just can't live up to the same level that Franz Tost was. Team T, I already talked about it being formerly AlphaTauri. They are the sister team to Red Bull, and they perhaps are the most influenced of the sister teams. Like, Christian basically calls the shots, but I guess it's because he's also owner, so that changes his role. If he was just a team principal, it might be different, but I'm not entirely sure what the dynamics of that situation is. But Zach Brown's not happy about it, so that's all I know. That's pretty much it. They listen to Red Bull all the time. They're all also supposed to supply Red Bull with new drivers, but Liam Lawson is the first one in several years to like follow that pipeline. All right, next team, MoneyGram Haas F1 team, also known as Haas, which is an American team, but I'll get into that. Okay, D1, I put him as D1 because he's older, but Esteban Ocon came from Alpine. He's 28, he's French, he's lanky. Not to be like, I say this all the time, I kind of forget Esteban exists. I didn't really last year because he was embroiled in so much drama and insanity with the way he was treated by Alpine. But like, he seems consistently disliked, and I can't figure out why, because he seems relatively harmless, but no one seems to really like him. Like, it's not just Pierre. I thought it might have just been Pierre, but people aren't big fans of him, and I can't figure out what it is. Like, a lot of teams leave with a bad taste in their mouth. Fernando didn't like him, or maybe they're fine now, but he definitely didn't like him for a bit. So like, it's just like, he's a confusing one. But he will probably be leading this team because he's older, more mature, more experienced, etc. So he is presumably the D1. Although he was questioned by someone at the factory when he was announced, and someone was like, do you really think Esteban's a good fit for this team? And I'm like, what is his vibe that he's giving off this energy? He was also randomly in like a movie. I don't remember which movie, but like, I saw a bunch of clips of him just randomly being like an extra in a movie. Very weird. Ollie Bierman. He's British, he's 19. He replaced Carlos for one race last year when he was having appendicitis surgery, and he finished like 7th and immediately got a spot. He raced again in Brazil when Kevin Magnussen got food poisoning, and it was rough for him because first of all, Brazil's a tough track, and second of all, it was pouring rain. So he definitely struggled, but I don't think that's any reflection on what kind of driver he's going to be. He's very, very cute. He was drinking banana milk during his DTS interview, which is a crazy thing to be drinking or to say out loud, but you know. And he recently shared a story that he got his driver's license on his second try because he blew a stoplight on the first. And also he said this and immediately regretting sharing that information. The team principal is named Ayao Komatsu. Moment of silence, though, for Gunther Steiner, whom he replaced, although I think he would join us in that moment of silence because he did say in DTS that he was sad that Gunther was leaving because they had a good relationship. He is an engineer by trade. I believe he has a PhD in automotive engineering. He was very cute. This is the first time, this DTS season was the first time I really got to know him. He's very cute, charismatic, bubbly. He's no Gunther Steiner. I think he said 0 swear words. But, you know, he's nice. And he did get the team pretty high up, I think 7th last year, which is pretty good for Haas. Let's be honest. Haas is American, and they're kind of a joke. Gunther was the only thing that they really had going for them, but that's gone. And maybe now they'll have results going for them, so we'll see. The team is owned by a man named Gene Haas, who actually just seems to suck a lot. Anyway, that's like pretty much, I'm like really indifferent about Haas, so we'll see how they do this year. But I do love little Ollie, and so I'd love to see him succeed, so hopefully they do well. And then we've got Williams Racing. The D1 there, and I put him as D1 because he was there first, is Alex Albon. He is half British, half Thai. Or maybe he's full Thai, but he has British citizenship. He races for Thailand, though. He got a bad rap when he was D2 for Max Verstappen and failed miserably. Not that it was his fault. He was not set up to succeed, and many have failed before and after him, so let's not put it all on him. He won Rookie of the Year in 2019, but then he sort of like just faded into the distance. He was still employed by Red Bull, so it wasn't horrible, but like, you know, wow, I just completely lost my train of thought. But now he's back at Williams, and I'm very excited for him to be at Williams. Okay, so there's this theory. So 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, he got appendicitis and he missed a race. And that launched a whole series of events that I actually cannot remember in entirety that caused a whole bunch of shit to happen. But basically it was like a whole causation thing that people are attributing to his appendicitis. After that, Lance fell off the bike and broke both of his wrists. Then Daniel crashed and broke one of his wrists, like in the exact same way. They shared a surgeon. And my theory is that we closed the loop on this weird, like, thing that happened with Carlos getting appendicitis and then moving to Williams. So I think we've closed the loop, and I think balance is restored in the universe. And I think we can let that theory go. Not that I did a very good job at explaining said theory, but like you got the gist. Anyway, he's so funny. Love Alex a lot. He has a fabulous girlfriend named Lily who's a professional golfer, and as always, she makes him better. He's a self-proclaimed wag because he walks around with a banana at her tournaments and vice versa. He's hilarious on social. He's hilarious in real life. I just really like him. He's kind of dorky and funny and just like very normal. He flies commercial, for God's sakes. Like, that's so relatable. The second driver is Carlos Sainz. He's Spanish. He's 30. He's my favorite of all time. He is related to many Carloses, all of whom are better than the last. His father, Carlos Sainz Sr., is a decorated rally driver. Still, he's like 65 and still like winning the Dakar rally, like crazy behavior for a 65-year-old. He's also pretty hot for a 65-year-old. And then he has a cousin named Caco, which is a nickname for Carlos. Not really sure why he got a nickname and no one else did. Also, Caco is just like my favorite thing to say. Like, his name is just like Caca. Little poop in Russian. Caco is his manager, and I love him. He narrated a lot of DTS content this season, and he's just very smart. And like, it was also very interesting to see how aligned his mindset is with Carlos. They clearly approach everything in a very similar way, which obviously makes sense. This is a management team, but like, it was just interesting to like hear it verbalized. Carlos broke my heart when he was released from Ferrari for doing nothing but winning races. But I think he's really rallied, and I think he will really thrive at Williams. He's super smart. He's very analytical. He's like super shrewd and like really understands the car. And like, I think he provides really in-depth feedback to engineers, which they appreciate, not just like, oh, it feels bad. Oh, it feels nice. Like, I think he's like fully technical going into things, which is unusual, I think, these days. And he's also just like, he's very memeable. He's described himself as a moving meme because like his facial expressions, like I really relate to his facial expressions. Like he's always captured in like the most intense expression. And I just love it. He's my favorite. I am now Williams girly. I have no choice. It's nice to be a Ferrari girly, but you know, the blue might be chiller. I'm kind of into the blue. And Carlos and Alex have both been my favorite drivers independently. So now they're on a team. James Vowles is the team principal. He came over from Mercedes when he was the strategy director. He is famous for saying, Valtteri, Valtteri, it's James. And then proceeding to tell him to like let Lewis through or something. And he definitely came from the Total Wolff School of Management. He's a very fucking eager beaver. Like eager. I liked him because he seemed like really dorky and like loves a spreadsheet and like super type A. Didn't love how he treated Logan Sargent, but I think I need to learn to let that go because Logan Sargent didn't belong there. I just felt like he could have been supported a bit better, but clearly James Vowles was like at the end of his, like he was over it. He was like, I can't deal with this anymore, and just like got rid of him. Fine, fair enough. It still upsets me the way he was treated, but you know, I have to move on. I do think he's been a little insane when it comes to Carlos Sainz. He talks about it like they're dating. I don't know, he's very interesting. He's definitely type A, anal, loves a plan. He has a 10-year plan. His family is super English. We saw them eating scones, I think, in the backyard. His wife is super cute. His children are super cute. I used to love James Vowles and fell out. Now I'm kind of back, but like begrudgingly because he's like a weirdo in a great way. And I will be talking a little bit more about that in the part 2 when we get into the DTS content. But the Team T, really the funnest fact, well, first of all, it's a very historical team. It used to win a bunch and then it like deteriorated, and now obviously James is trying to bring it back to the top. But it's like a very historical name in F1. But I think the best fact we have about Williams is that both of the drivers have had appendicitis. And they are the first lineup in F1 history to have 0 appendices. And that's crazy to me. And I really think it'll help because you know what? They're lighter. They're lighter than everyone else. So we'll see how they thrive appendix-less. All right, finally, Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber, also known as Kick Sauber, soon to be known as Audi. D1, because he's old as fuck. Nico Hulkenberg, who is German, and I think he's like 36 now. He has children. He kind of looks like he was hot, which he was, but then like aged, but like still thinks he's that hot. He is, like, it just looks like past your prime, still hot, but past your prime kind of way. But that feels like exceptionally rude for no reason. So he's German. He, like, I honestly don't think about him very much, but like he's inoffensive. So like it's cool that he's there, and hopefully he can thrive at Kick Sauber. But last year they scored 0 points because their car sucked. So we'll see what he can do. And then there's Gabriel Bortoleto, who is Brazilian. He is 20. They're children, all these people. I know nothing about him other than I saw him being super sassy towards Nico, which I love, like sassing his age. And I think that's great. So I have high hopes for how things will go with him. The team principal is named Jonathan Wheatley, and I know nothing about him other than he used to be the sporting director at Red Bull Racing. Team T, so not really that interesting, but when it was back being Alfa Romeo, my favorite fun fact was that Alfa Romeo actually came before Ferrari, and Ferrari was actually Alfa Romeo's sister team, but then Ferrari just did so much better, and Alfa Romeo became secondary. That's my fun fact. There's really nothing else I can say about this team other than they look like Shigo from Kim Possible, and it's a weird vibe, and we'll probably not talk about them again. All right, so that's it for the who's who of F1 2025. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully that wasn't too boring because I know I rambled a lot. Before we move on to part 2, which will be a separate episode, I'm gonna pop these in the oven and we'll see how they turned out in the next episode. 2 seconds. Catch me in part 2 to get up to speed with things that happen off season, and also to recap Drive to Survive so we can refresh our memories of 2024 and really be fully ready for 2025. See you in a bit. Fox.